And we begin the in-person talk series with a conversation between the Spanish artist Ignasi Aballí and the architect and art collector Vasa Perović. I highlighted art collector because of a question that I have for Vasa that we will discuss further. As we know, Ignasi has a very strong practice. His practice is very strongly connected with conceptual art, whatever that means, and it would be great if you could discuss a little bit what does that mean to you. But I would like to go. I just mentioned the Spanish pavilion at the Venice Biennale, where when we get in, we were facing like just the architecture of the space, an empty pavilion, and then because there are some resonances with the work that you presented here, and I know that you have selected those images to show us. So if you wanted to start there, it would be great.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to everyone for coming. And yes, answering your question, when I was invited to participate in Venice, I thought that I should prepare a site-specific project, not to have a normal exhibition with different works I did before, but to do something special for the context of the Biennale, the building of the Spanish pavilion, the city of Venice. But before Venice, I like to show you this previous project I did in another space, and because this was the first time I used the architecture, the exhibition space, as an important element of the exhibition, of the piece, of the work. And when I thought about the Venice project, I had in mind very recent this project I did just 1 year and a half before. So here, the space was a rectangle painted with gray. I didn't paint it in gray, not like here. It was already gray. So I proposed to build some walls that divide this space. They are painted in white to articulate a different division and perception of this space. And in the walls, I wrote these words with the idea of explain why there were not other words, visible words. The words were instead other words that usually you can see in a normal, let's see, exhibition. And the words are, I propose this series of words because they are not connected or related with an image, with something visual. So the word invisible, of course, if something is invisible, we don't know how is it. If it's unimaginable, we don't know how is something unimaginable. And during the visit to the exhibition, you discover in different walls, different words with this idea of absence of image. These new white walls were not constructed in the normal good position. They were a little bit out of line, as you can see, and this transformed the space in a very, like, I don't know, maybe not so realistic, but strange and different space. When I saw them, I perceived them also as a sculpture because they were like a big element, not only a wall, but like a plan, no? A geometric element placed inside of the space. And this also happens in Venice. The title for Venice was Correction, okay, because the idea was, in general, simplifying, to correct the pavilion, the architecture of the pavilion, because I realized that it was not very aligned in relation to the pavilions beside. It was a little bit turned, and I proposed to rebuild it again, but in the good place. This was a difference of 10 degrees in relation to the original one. So we rebuilt the inside of the pavilion 10 degrees turn. So the idea is very easy, very simple, but then to do it and to construct it was very difficult because, of course, it was not a normal architecture. It was full of strange places, corners. You could see inside of narrow spaces between walls, but you cannot go out from this space when you build the wall. So we had to solve many interesting and strange and imagine solutions to finally get to do it. The space apparently was empty because it was anything else than the walls, but I think that it was absolutely full of something empty. So this is very different. If you have a board box and you put another one inside, the first is full of an empty board box. So it's not the same to have one empty than one full of something empty. So this was the idea of the... And then I painted in a different white color the old walls, the original walls of the pavilion, and the new ones we built for the exhibition. And this made me perceive that it was connected also with painting, because some views were like a geometric painting, not these plants, these painted with different shades of white. And then the light coming inside of the space was also an important element, because I left open the windows in the ceiling, so the sunlight came in and changed all the time the atmosphere of the space. No? It was not the same the month of April or the month of August or November, and it was different in the morning or in the evening. It changed all the time. And the light draws with these lines inside, sometimes destroying the idea of architecture. It was a new layer to confuse and to create a new perception of the space. Well, these are details of these cross walls and counters of these two different elements, the original building and the new one. And this mix creates a very strange and different corners and spaces.
So if I may, Vasa, this series of images, not only these ones we have seen so far, but the ones that we will be seeing later, were chosen by you and Ignasi.
Yes.
These two works, the Without Image and the Venice Pavilion, you were interested in it because of the presence of the architecture element. What was your...
Not that much. In fact, not for the same reasons that Ignasi was mentioning. For example, I mean, I think my strong part of my presentation of Ignasi's work, of this work, would be that he managed to align Spain to the other countries, no? So in the sense that there was this kind of a political undertone to the project, which I think was extremely, let's say, important in my reading of that project, no? Because of course Spanish were a little bit off the grid of all the other pavilions. So finally, probably 80 years into their presence in the Biennale, they have been corrected to the right, and that produced this, of course, and the consequence was what Ignasi was saying, but that was just a consequence of this kind of maybe a political undertone that I think also very, very importantly paints that work, no?
When you look at Ignasi works, what elements strike you more?
Well, we know each other for a long time. This is probably the reason why we are friends. But I have also been following Ignasi's work for not very long time, but for a long time, no? And I think that, of course, on different levels, his work engages with the kind of what you would call today a conceptual practices, no? The kind of of course, this exhibition is about the idea of gray, which we probably will talk later. But the idea of what is a painting today, or what is a sculpture today, or what would be what are the possibilities of language in relation to visual arts, or in relation to perception. So basically, these are all well, the issues that I think Ignasi consistently raises in different phases of his work. No. Well, starting from the archives, which is another passion that we both share, no? In the when was this, early 90s maybe, no? Onwards, there is a whole series of issues that are raised, and in a way, I think this exhibition is a very good example how seemingly different types of works, or different, at first sight, works that don't belong together, belong to each other through a kind of an idea that brings them all into a kind of a complete presentation. So in that sense, I think this is also good. So basically, yes, I have been following work for a long time. I also have a lot of Ignasi's works, but not enough, huh?
You could have more.
Yes. But in general, yes, I think that he consistently raises issues which basically obsess me as well. So this is why I also kind of complain a little bit to this idea of being a collector, because basically I always think that you're looking for a kind of people who are interested in similar things that are bothering you at that time, and that collection is something different. No?
When we were preparing this improvisation, that is our talk, so as you know, to improvise you need to rehearse a lot. Ignasi told me that painting came after these types of intervention. So that was this very conceptual, minimal practice that took you to painting. Can you develop a little bit more that idea? And if you want, you can show the images that you and Vasa have selected. And if you agree, for you, Vasa, sure. The question would be if painting is like a consequence of this more conceptual, minimal practice, and political, as you said, Ignasi had, and how can you develop this work in painting from here?
Well, I studied painting in fine arts in Barcelona, the specialty of painting. So when I finished studying at the university, I was a painter, and I started painting in my studio. But after not very long period, I was not happy with I was getting with my painting. So I started to think other strategies to talk about this discipline, let's see, talking about or proposing a reflection about it, but without use it in the traditional way. So slowly I started finding other possibilities. The first time, I think they are not here. No, I use, for example, the sunlight to paint and to transform the surface of the boards I put in the roof of my studio, and reproducing the windows of my studio with the influence of the sun on these surfaces. So I didn't touch them. Only the sunlight transformed the surface and draw. And then other materials that were not actually paint, but they were similar in the same kind of. And one of these
similar as in they were not painting, but they were connected to your paintings.
To mine or to
painting,
to the painting,
to the painting in general.
Yeah, like for example this liquid we used to correct. In Spain it's called Tipex. I don't know.
Everywhere.
If you have
it's Tipex everywhere.
Everywhere. Okay. So I was worried one day in my studio. Many words comes from the idea of do nothing or doubt about what to do, to be lazy a little bit, no, and start playing with the things I have on my table. One of these things were a pot of Tipex, and I open it and I start doing, let's see, it's a liquid and a small brush, but it's not paint because it has the quality to correct, no? To change or to cover the mistakes and to start again, to get again the white paper. And this started to provoke something in my mind. And the next step would be, what can I do with this? Because, okay, this is interesting, but how can I use this material? No? It's the same with dust or other materials I use, how to use it. So the first thing I did was to paint a black square in the wall and then cover it with Tipex until, it almost disappeared. The white of the Tipex is a little bit different from the wall in which I installed the piece. But the title is Big Mistake. Why? Because which is the big mistake I did to propose this work to cover the black square to, I don't know. It's also a commentary to the history of painting. Of course, Perović is here, the black square and the white on white. So but using a different material like this Tipex, no? And a title that suggests I did an action different than Perović did many years before. But it's connected because it's a monochrome. The white on white of Perović, of course, is behind this work. But the next one was to cover a mirror with Tipex and eliminate the possibility of reproducing images. A mirror is an object, a machine who has always on it the reflection, an image. You, if you put in front, or the space, or whatever. No? If you painted it on white, if you correct it, you get again a new white surface to project on it wherever you want. So it's already the possibility to start again and to avoid this continuous projection or content of images. So, but the titles are important because Tipex is to correct and the other is the mistake. So it's a way to explain that this material is used in the correct way for what it's done. So it's that's the idea. No?
Vasa, you want to add anything?
No, but of course those two will eventually relate to the two works that are behind us that you probably don't see, but you can look at.
Cannot see them now, but
there are two paintings behind us.
And then, as you see, one of these two was titled Correction, like the pavilion, maybe 25 years later. So some topics are frequently coming again and again. Probably these are the obsessions I have as an artist, but everyone has their own. So, and the obsessions are the engine who allow us to do things. Without obsessions, I think I do nothing. No, but for example, the idea of mistake, correction, absence, past of time, all these things are always present in my works in different moments and with different formalizations.
But Ignasi has put my favorite work of his now on, which relates to this idea of painting, no, or a painted surface, no, because there is the work where basically it's cans of paint which are opened and left to dry. So this kind of, let's say, this was the first work that drew me to his practice, no, in a way, this kind of. Well, you could see it as a refusal to paint, or the kind of, or the absence of need to paint, or the kind of, or the frustration with the idea that we are surrounded by painterly surfaces, let's say, no? Through the history of art, what we see as history of art. Yes, and I thought that this was a wonderful piece, wonderful introduction to Ignasi for me, no, to his work.
No, the title is Waste, and I did just what I was explaining, just by painting, open the pods of this material and let it dry inside. So waste this painting and not produce something with it. But in another lecture, I think it was very autobiographical work. But I explained that I both paint, I start thinking what to do with it, and I think so much that when I want to use it, it's already dry. So that means to postpone the reflection to action. No, it's a kind of a statement. No, like for example, the dust over this table. I didn't do anything, just wait until the table is well ready to be exposed. No, so it's let's things happen sometimes. No, not to be active, but wait and to be a little to prepare things that things happen, but not be very active with them. So it's.
And these paintings are examples when you start introducing the language inside the paintings, not on the architecture. You start using color. So can you elaborate a little bit more on one thing Vasa already told about importance of language, and the other thing, but here it's not only language but also color, that in the previous works from you that we have seen.
Yes, I was always fascinated for the color charts, because in my opinion, when you go to the shop to buy the colors you want to use, this decision is already influencing the painting you will do later. No, so it's the first step to make a work. So the color chart would be like the degree zero of any painting, because depending of how you combine these colors, you will get this or realistic painting. No? So but this previous state of paint, the colors you have in the shop to buy and to make your work, and the decision of buying this or this and not the other. So this is already a decision I like, and for this reason, color charts are very present here in some works and in other works I did previously. And then it's interesting because the color chart will connect the color with the name of the color. And I always found it funny, the name of some colors, like for example, sky blue or blue sky. No? What is the blue sky? The sky is changing all the time. It's different at day, during the night, in winter, in summer. But all of us, we may imagine a blue sky. But this conflictive relationship between image and text, for me, it was very interesting. Then, of course, I think the first artist who explored this relationship to break it was Magritte, when he paints a cloud and then she wrote a horse. Right? Breaking the normal connection between image and word, what we see and what we say. If he breaks this, then an artist like Marcel Brot-Daers or the conceptuals, until today, we can establish a genealogy of conceptual artists using this break between art, image, and text. So I continue exploring this matter, this topic in different ways. One was like the one you see, to paint to background with a yellow in this case, and write on all the objects that has a name of yellow, or give a different kind of yellow. No? All the ones I found. So the text is all the time yellow, yellow something, yellow banana, yellow lemon, yellow. So I did the same with.
So can I just interrupt you? So in the case of the yellow, as in the case of the black, it is as if even when you are using language, you're still working or operating in the field of the color, because actually what you are doing is to somehow expand the yellow with which you painted, and showing that.
Yeah, I always explain that, for example, this is like you wear glasses with a yellow glass and you only distinguish the yellow
All the
side
yellows.
of the reality, not only the yellow. Because in this big list, there are things like minerals, flowers, plants, name of people, name of cities, name of different things. It's like a compendium of the reality through the yellow or the black or the color.
When you select those sentences or words, you select them by chance, or you have.
No, I have a research before to try to find as much as possible in internet, in dictionaries, in different places, manuals of color. So I collect all of them and then I put them in alphabetical order and I wrote them on the surface of the paint. Well, the technique is I paint the background with one of these colors, then I give the canvas to a lab to print there the names of the text on the painting.
You want to add something, Vasa?
Like this one, for example.
This gray one, right?
This is the
Yeah,
same
this
technique.
this is another one of the series of those works. You know, I think you actually mentioned before the idea that you paint with the word, or the word or the object named retains the kind of pictorial character to it, no? So I think that's kind of quite important, because we also share another artist who I'm not going to mention, a hero, who, if you remember, wrote or described with text the entire painting of Cézanne, no? Some 30 or 40 years ago. So basically, this kind of the idea of transforming a painting into a written word is something that I think is very characteristic of Ignasi's research, no? That the written word is also, in fact, a painterly gesture. In different ways, because this one, the gray thing behind us, is then completely different. It's basically a composite of colors, no? The one that's here. No?
I bought all these colors you can see printed on the gray. That means all the colors from a brand of acrylics. Sorry. All these colors, I think they are 42 or 43. I mixed all of them in a big. I got this gray. I painted the background, and then I printed on the gray the name of all of these, but you cannot see already them because they are completely mixed. No, it's similar, but the concept is very different. So, in a way, this painting contains all these
All the
colors.
painting and all the other paintings.
Exactly, but you only can see one because they are mixed. So it's a little different.
This is a piece or just a
No.
picture from.
This is the original work.
Show the colors I used to do this. This is secret. Nobody has to know.
No. So you're revealing with us a secret.
Yes.
And so, actually, what we see in this gray painting is like the list of the ingredients.
Yes, exactly.
And so, and maybe to jump into if you agree to this exhibition, something happens between when you use language in order to say all the yellows, you use language to give us all the ingredients with which you are able to create this gray. And then we have these paintings that are on our left side in which language is totally absent. So what makes you introduce language in the paintings? And if possible, if you can elaborate a little bit and share with us what makes you take language out of the paintings?
Yes, well, this is obvious. These ones, they don't include text on the painting, but of course, the text is separate because you have a small book, I guess, on the chair. This book is very important to understand these works. I'm not sure if these are paintings in a traditional sense of what is a painting, because I think they are just the last step of a process that starts very before, and I will explain now, but this is the last step, but I didn't decide almost nothing. I didn't decide the color, I didn't decide, well, the size, more or less, but you will see that this is the last step of a method I create by myself to arrive here. But before, there are many steps to follow. That is, first thing I do is to cut from the newspaper a photography printed in the newspaper, in which you can see another work or image in a museum, in a gallery, in an exhibition space, depends. And usually in these images there is people watching at one work or visiting the gallery of the museum. I cut this photography, then I scan it in my computer, and I found in Photoshop, in a function by Photoshop, the medium color of the photography. So after they have the image, I got only one color that maybe would be like to reduce the photography to only one pixel, no? One color. But this color is, again, like in the gray, the mix of all the colors of the photography. Then I print this color because I only have it in the screen. I print it on paper to try to find with paint the most similar color I have printed on a paper. So you can see here around all the tests I had to do until find the most similar color to the big one. No? So when I consider I have the good one, then I paint one of these canvases. The canvases are 9 times the size of the photography. So that means 3 by 3 times the original size of the photo. And in the book you have written, you can read the information it was in the newspaper down to the photography that explains the content of this image. No?
You keep the original images, or you throw them away?
Usually they are hidden, nobody can see them except the person who buys the work. Okay. I include the photography inside the box with the paint and the book and the photo cut from the newspaper. But for you can understand a little bit better the process, I will show you two.
I'm actually convinced Ignasi to show these things because these things are supposed to be the private part or the kind of intimate part of the works, the origin of the works. So in a sense, this is in public circulation. This is something that is in the kind of a box, and this is the origin of the work, which the general public might not necessarily grasp from looking at the relatively ugly brown monochrome.
But imagine that an art collector, which is a sentence that you like so much, imagine that an art collector that now comes to Vera and buys all the works, so we'll have access to these reproductions, and hangs on the wall not only the paintings but also the pictures.
No, actually, I have now.
You give the instructions like no, you cannot show because because I'm asking you this because Vasa was telling that is the original, or the images from which you depart are private, but is
In a way, no?
in a way. So if someone decides, for instance, Vera, when she's talking about highly of your work, they are very interesting, and she shows these private images, how do you feel about it?
They don't show them. This is only shown now.
I thought for a long
gallery
time
doesn't
if I
get it.
should include the image or not inside the box.
Because once you give the box, it doesn't belong to you. So
No.
I
Of
can
course,
decide to
you
hang
can-
both things on.
The collector may decide to frame it beside the painting, so no problem for me if he decided this. But
But you were saying you reflected a lot of time if you should include or not. What made you include the reproduction?
because I think it's interesting to have this point of start if you have one the final step. No, you have the first and the last.
No, for me, I wanted to not agree with Ignasi, that because I think if he wouldn't have included this image, the work wouldn't have been complete, because the origin of somehow this reveals the origin of the work, and it's somehow very important for the perception of the work, for any work, no, not this one, not the brown. So in that sense, I think by deciding this, you made the right decision, or you basically created the work. Otherwise, it would have been a brown square, relatively thick, nicely painted, on a white piece of canvas.
What I wanted to get is this very, very uniform surface to exclude any idea of gesture, manuality. Of course, I started doing this kind of work at the end of 90s. In that moment, the newspaper printed was the normal way to be informed. The reflection I did before when I started with this series was, well, the newspaper concentrate in an object the most significant of one day. So the newspaper had a duration of 24 hours, then you threw it away because the new one appears and the old was obsolete. And I thought, how could I stop this temporality of 24 hours and to get a bigger temporality of the intemporality, no? So to get that this news, this information is not only connected with this day, but with any time. So the first thing I cut was the numbers of things, dead people, immigrants, quantities of money, periods of time, all the information I got, but with a number before. No? Then I separate this for groups, this information that arrives in a chaotic way every day. No? It's like drops, no? That comes down from the world. And I collect them before, and then I separate in groups that I establish. I accept that is a decision I took. But of course, every time I have more and more groups, because I got more and more things that I interested on, and this is every time bigger. No?
Reality is overwhelming.
At the end, I thought, I'm trying to represent the reality with a material that the reality gives me in the newspaper. Yeah, this work is also connected with this.
Many biennials ago.
Those framed, hanged.
There is a gray zone in every one, a different gray zone, because the words are more or less big, and the typography is different, suggesting that every frame contains a different gray shade of gray. I say that at the left of the first would be the white, at the right of the last would be the black, and in between you could imagine 8 different gradation of grays. The first is the smallest, the last is the biggest, so you can establish this gradation between black and white but the color is, once more, is not there. So you have to imagine it.
When I saw the exhibition, and this is for both of you, I was really impressed by that corner work. Yeah. Well, I'm impressed by the whole exhibition, but because it seems to me that that work, and I would love to hear you speaking about it, it really is a kind of synthesis of all your work, because you have the color charts, you have images taken, I don't know from where, you have language, you paint on the wall, etc. You have photography. Can you speak a little bit before?
Yes, this is again a work also very connected with the space of the gallery, because it's installed in a corner. So the corner is one element of the work. You cannot install this work in the middle of a wall. You need this part of the architecture, this element of the architecture, a corner. And there I propose to show a little bit the theory of the exhibition, some of the texts and influences I had to make the other pieces. So, but this information is covered but with a new information, so you can discover or you can read only fragments or small pieces, because one information covers the one behind. So it's the title is Saturated Corners, because there are too much things. No, in this place is like the point of concentration of all the ideas and topics of the exhibition. No? So this is like well, I think this work and that one are maybe the most connected with all the other works in the exhibition.
More like the frame, this beginning and the end.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. This, and they are very different. As I told you, this is.
What is the date of this work?
What?
What date is this work?
Date?
Yes.
25.
It doesn't start. It's not.
But it started.
It's not 2010, 2025.
No, before 2010, okay. 2000 or something like this. Because this was a table I had in my studio. I put papers, books, things on, and I forgot, well, during many times. And then one day I decided to remove the table, and I also removed the things I had on, and I got this image, and I thought, wow, this is not bad, timed, good, made things well, so it's, and I decided to keep the table also in a corner of the studio, abandoned until one month ago.
Until Vera was there.
When I decided to include it, because I thought that it has sense to show it here. And finally, the table found the correct place. So.
Your art collection. Someone asked me, or someone told me you should ask Vasa about his art collection, and I think, and someone also told me that you have a very personal understanding of what is an art collector.
Yes, but well,
we are here about Ignasi, but
no,
we know that you collect.
No, I told you that I hate this idea of art collector, or because it sounds really like some sort of profession, on one hand, or a bracket. On the other hand, it's really I never really, what I did in my life so far was never intentional about kind of creating a kind of collections are constructed, no. And for me, what the works that I have, I don't live with 99.99 of them in a kind of a little bit weird way, because I don't have the works at home. That brings another hero that we both share, no? Herman Daled. But generally, it's the works that are as much mine in a way as they are by the artist, because the fact that I chose those works is very kind of intimate. So in that sense, and of course, I think the idea of collection and collector has become very, professionalized, I would say, in the last 20 years. No? So this is why I never considered it a collection. It was something much more intimate and much less constructed.
You were already friends with Ignasi when you started collecting Ignasi, or your friendship came from...
No, we met after I bought the first work, which was the Archive of the Skies, which basically had all the very big Archive of the Skies, which had the notations which were cut out from the newspapers and had the notations of the newspapers and the locations, the geographic locations where they were taken. No? So it's a very big archive of, as he said before, blue sky. It's almost none of them are blue, in fact. But it's also, again, how subtly political these works look. It is an archive of the skies, but if you read the geographic locations underneath, you actually can almost, not almost, but you can very clearly see the year, because they come from the newspapers. We can very clearly see the political events of that year, even though the only image that you see is the skies. No? Because they have been cut out from above the events. The skies are cut from above the events that the photographs depict. So basically, you can very easily figure out that it's probably, year, I don't know, whichever, 2003 or whatever, or 2000 and whatever. I don't know if it mentions Fukushima, mine somewhere. So basically, it's on one hand a kind of a poetic archive of all the skies that have appeared in El País over a course of 1 year, but at the same time, it's also a fragment of the history of our existence, let's say, at that particular year. No? Not very disciplined, because you don't start with the 1st of January, which you should, but... So
you're not a disciplined artist.
Okay, I will change
that.
No, yeah.
If you don't mind, let's... if someone has a question, Vasa and Ignasi will be glad to answer and comment.
So your work having components of absence that consequently have presence, I think, and obviously that in some way translates to the relation with the body, ways of seeing, ways of being in a place, and of course using words that in their nature have, I think, so much power. I wanted to ask you if it makes sense. What do you think is the social force of your work?
The social
force of your work?
I don't know. It's a thing I never think before. Which will be the influence, or how people will receive the works. Of course, sometimes I have opinions and people that ask me or tell me that something. But I think, or what I try to do is to show things that could be more or less understood for a big number of people. But then, after your knowledge, your interest, your sensibility, you can go further in terms of understand what I propose with the work. So, but this depends, no? It's I think that with what you see with the title and with maybe a small information, you can understand what are you saying. But then you can go further, or I guess so, no? So it's and discover new layers of content or different approaches to the work.
Vasa, you want to add something?
Yes, because maybe at first sight I would say that you expect, you're probably asking, is the work socially engaged at first sight? Also, my reading of the political engagement, we never discussed this with Ignasi, is completely my own perception of it. He probably, I don't know if he actually thought about it, no? So as a consequence, the works also have a social dimension, because if you look at in those early archives, for example, you have the archive of the dead people that he was mentioning, or I have at home a large archive of isms. And you also, if you follow that, you see the kind of obsessions, if you want, also socially related obsessions of the time where we live in, because it's the moment where all of these things, where he has cut, I don't know, his favorite tool is the scissors, I suppose. Again, I'm speculating because we are friends, but not that good that I'm sitting behind his back in the studio. But he is basically by organizing this kind of the world of his. As a consequence, it also comments on where we are, and basically this is why I wanted this image as the last, because it also relates to that. It's the hands of the artist and the kind of the idea of the artwork made by the hands of the artist, which is something that is immanent to our, let's say, existence or knowledge of history of art. So these are the dusty words of Ignasi, probably cleaning one of these tables, not really producing that much.
Yeah, the title is My Hands After Touching Dirty Things.
And the dirty things are artworks.
Sometimes, yes.